Power doesn't always look the way we expect. Sometimes it wears a badge and carries a gun. Other times, it lives in the mind of a 17-year-old girl from Baltimore who refuses to become another statistic. The harsh fluorescent lights of the interrogation room buzzed overhead as Officer Milton Stokes circled the table. His face twisted into a smirk as he towered over Imani Turner, a black teenager he'd arrested earlier that evening. "You think you're smarter than the system, don't you?" He sneered, confident he'd found an easy target to frame for a crime she didn't commit. What Officer Stokes didn't know was that Imani had spent years studying law at a community center after school. Every afternoon, while her classmates played sports or hung out at the mall, Imani absorbed knowledge about constitutional rights, legal precedents, and proper police procedure. When Stokes slammed his hand on the metal table and demanded a confession, he expected tears, confusion, maybe even a false admission of guilt. Instead, Imani calmly recited her rights with such precision that the color drained from his face. The power dynamic shifted in an instant. This wasn't just another scared teenager. This was someone who understood the system better than many attorneys. Have you ever witnessed someone underestimated solely because of their age or race suddenly reveal their true capabilities? The moment when prejudice meets preparedness can change everything. The story of how this young legal prodigy dismantled a corrupt officer's case and sparked department-wide reforms is one you won't want to miss. If you believe in justice and the power of education to overcome discrimination, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss how knowledge can become the ultimate weapon against injustice. The West Baltimore neighborhood where Imani Turner grew up wasn't just a place on a map. It was a living history of resilience. Generations had weathered economic hardship, over-policing, and systemic neglect. Yet the community remained strong, bound by shared struggles and collective triumphs. Children played double dutch on sidewalks while elders kept watchful eyes from porches, preserving an unspoken network of protection. In this close-knit world, the Turner family stood as pillars of quiet strength. Tasha Turner, Imani's mother, transformed her living room into a neighborhood hub each Sunday, hosting discussion circles where residents strategized against gentrification and police harassment. A third-generation community organizer, Tasha believed knowledge was both a weapon and shield in the fight for equality. "They can take your home, your freedom, even your life," she often told Imani, "but they can never take what you know." "What's up here?" Tapping her temple with conviction. Marcus Turner, her father, brought home stories from his nursing shifts that painted a raw picture of Baltimore's healthcare disparities. His gentle hands had stitched wounds from protest confrontations and held those suffering from preventable conditions, experiences he shared openly with his daughter. "The system isn't broken," he would say. "It functions exactly as designed. Our job is to redesign it." Imani absorbed these lessons like oxygen. While her classmates at Frederick Douglass High School focused on typical teenage concerns, she gravitated toward deeper questions. By 15, she'd read the Constitution cover to cover, highlighting passages with questions in the margins. The Empowerment Legal Center became her second home during sophomore year. Located in a converted brownstone, the center offered free legal workshops taught by black attorneys who'd grown up on the same streets. Here, Imani discovered her calling among stacks of case, law, and civil rights precedents. Attorney Regina Washington, the center's founder, quickly noticed Imani's exceptional recall and analytical thinking. "Most teens memorize song lyrics," she remarked to colleagues. "This girl memorizes Supreme Court opinions and applies them to current events." 3 afternoons weekly, Imani practiced mock trials, constitutional arguments, and proper interaction with law enforcement. She mastered the art of asserting rights without escalation. A delicate balance in a city where police encounters could turn deadly. Quiet by nature, Imani rarely spoke unless necessary. But when legal questions arose, her transformation was immediate. Her voice found confidence, her posture straightened, and her words flowed with precision that belied her youth. Little did she know that this knowledge, accumulated through countless hours of dedication, would soon become her armor in an unexpected battle for justice. July heat clung to Baltimore's streets long after sunset, creating a sticky warmth that wrapped around buildings and people alike. On Cherry Hill Avenue, streetlights buzzed to life as the sky deepened into purple. 17-year-old Imani Turner walked with measured steps, backpack heavy with legal textbooks from her evening session at the Empowerment Legal Center. 3 blocks from home, she passed Marvin's Corner Store, its neon sign flickering blue and yellow across the sidewalk. A group of young men stood outside, voices rising in animated discussion over a basketball game. Nothing unusual for a Thursday night in the neighborhood. What was unusual was the slow-moving patrol car that had been trailing down the street for the past 20 minutes. Behind the wheel sat Officer Milton Stokes, a man whose name traveled through community whispers with warnings attached. In his 15 years on the force, Stokes had accumulated 17 civilian complaints, all dismissed without consequence. He patrolled predominantly black neighborhoods with an approach residents described as looking for trouble instead of preventing it. Officer Stokes had a reputation for manufacturing reasons to stop black youth. His arrest record showed a disturbing pattern, charges that initially seemed serious but were later dropped for lack of evidence. Yet his superiors praised his proactive policing, a term the community recognized as harassment dressed in professional language. As Imani passed the corner store, the men's discussion escalated. 2 of them pushed each other, knocking over a rack of magazines displayed outside. The store owner rushed out, shouting. At that moment, Officer Stokes hit his lights and pulled to the curb. Imani kept walking, intent on getting home before her 9 p.m. curfew. She had reached the end of the block when she heard footsteps rapidly approaching from behind. "Hey, stop right there!" Officer Stokes barked, hand already resting on his holster. Imani turned, confused. "Mil?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped, eyes cold with presumption. "I saw you with that group. What did you take from the store?" "I didn't take anything. I was just walking home from—" "Empty your backpack, now." Despite knowing her rights, Imani complied, heart hammering against her ribs. She carefully removed her books, notebook, and water bottle, placing them on the sidewalk. Officer Stokes rifled through her belongings with contempt. Finding nothing incriminating, his expression hardened. He pulled out his radio. "Got a suspect matching the description from that robbery call earlier. Bringing her in for questioning." Imani's protest died in her throat as cold metal handcuffs clicked around her wrists. There had been no robbery call. She knew it. He knew it. "You can't do this," she managed, voice steady despite her fear. "Watch me," Stokes replied, shoving her toward the patrol car. "You people always think you're above the law." As neighborhood witnesses began gathering, phones recording the scene, Officer Stokes leaned close to Imani's ear. "Smart mouth gets you nowhere in my precinct. Let's see how clever you are after a night in holding." The patrol car door slammed shut, cutting off the concerned voices of neighbors. Through the window, Imani caught sight of Mrs. Jackson from 2 doors down, already on her phone, undoubtedly calling Tasha Turner to report what she'd just witnessed. Officer Stokes had chosen his target based on nothing but proximity and prejudice. What he couldn't possibly know was that he had just detained the wrong girl, perhaps the most legally prepared teenager in all of Baltimore. The Western District Police Station's interrogation room was designed to break spirits. Concrete walls painted institutional green surrounded a metal table bolted to the floor. A single overhead light gave everything a harsh, unflattering glow. No windows, no clock, nothing to connect the occupant to the outside world. Officer Stokes left Imani sitting alone for 43 minutes before entering, a calculated tactic to heighten anxiety. She counted each second, focusing on her breathing, remembering Attorney Washington's advice. They use isolation to make you desperate for human contact. When they finally appear, you'll feel relief, then gratitude. Don't. When the door finally swung open, Stokes entered with a manila folder he slapped dramatically on the table. Empty, most likely. Another trick she'd been warned about. "So," he began, circling the table like a predator, "want to tell me why you were running from that store?" "I wasn't running, and I wasn't at any store. I was walking home from the Empowerment Legal Center." Stokes laughed. "That's not what witnesses say. I've got 3 people who saw you arguing with the cashier before things got physical." A lie. Imani felt her heart accelerate, but kept her expression neutral. "There's no body camera footage of my arrest, is there?" she asked quietly. Stokes's eyebrows raised slightly, his first tell. Equipment malfunction. Convenient, Imani murmured. Listen, girl. Stokes leaned across the table, voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You're in serious trouble. Theft, resisting arrest, maybe assault if the store owner's feeling spiteful. But I could help you if you cooperate. Fear tightened Imani's throat. She was 17, alone, facing fabricated charges from an officer with institutional power. For a moment, survival instinct urged her to confess to whatever he wanted. Then she remembered her mother's words. Knowledge is both a weapon and a shield. Imani straightened in her chair and looked directly into Officer Stokes' eyes. Officer Stokes, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and my Sixth Amendment right to counsel, she stated clearly. Under Miranda v. Arizona, 1966, you cannot continue questioning me without my attorney present. Stokes's confidence faltered. You watch too many cop shows. I also know that Berkemer v. McCarty established that Miranda rights apply regardless of whether the interrogation occurs in a police station or before formal charges. And Tennessee v. Garner prohibits using deadly force against a fleeing suspect unless there's probable cause to believe the suspect poses significant threat. She continued, voice growing stronger. Given that you've detained me without probable cause, we're looking at a potential Fourth Amendment violation. The Supreme Court in Terry v. Ohio established that officers must have reasonable suspicion based on specific facts before detaining citizens. Stokes's face transformed, shock, confusion, then alarm cycling through his features. His hand, previously planted firmly on the table to assert dominance, slowly retreated. I want to call my parents and attorney now, Imani concluded, and I'd like documentation of the alleged witness statements you mentioned. The officer stepped back, visibly rattled. Who are you? Just a black girl who reads, she replied simply. Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you because of your age, race, or appearance? The look on their face when you prove them wrong is priceless, isn't it? Share your experiences in the comments below. We've all faced prejudice, but how we respond defines us. Stokes reached for the door handle, composure shattered. What had begun as a routine frame-up had transformed into a potential career-ending mistake. And Imani Turner, still handcuffed, but no longer powerless, knew this was only the beginning. News moves at lightning speed in tight-knit communities. Before Imani even received her phone call, Mrs. Jackson had already contacted Tasha Turner, who immediately rallied neighborhood support. By midnight, a crowd of 30 residents gathered outside the Western District Police Station, cell phones documenting every moment. Marcus Turner, still in his hospital scrubs from an extended shift, demanded to see his daughter. When denied, he called every community connection the family had cultivated over decades. My 17-year-old daughter is being held without cause or counsel, he told them. This stops tonight. By dawn, the crowd had doubled. Local organizers set up a live stream that caught the attention of independent journalists. Social media exploded with #FreeImani hashtags alongside clips of her wrongful arrest. Tasha's phone rang continuously with offers of support. Food for protesters, bail money, legal assistance. The most significant call came from Leonard Caldwell, a civil rights attorney whose reputation for holding police departments accountable stretched back 2 decades. He had won landmark cases against law enforcement agencies across the East Coast. I watched the footage, Caldwell told Tasha. Your daughter didn't just assert her rights. She cited case law with the precision of a law professor. I'm taking this case pro bono. By afternoon, 3 local news vans parked outside the station. A reporter from the Baltimore Sun interviewed community members who testified to Imani's character and intellect. The story angle quickly shifted from alleged teenage theft to honors student wrongfully detained. Inside the station, pressure mounted as supervisors reviewed the circumstances of Imani's arrest. Officer Stokes' incident report contained glaring inconsistencies. No robbery call existed in the dispatch logs. No witnesses could be produced. The convenient body camera malfunction raised immediate red flags. When Attorney Caldwell arrived, impeccably dressed and flanked by 2 paralegals, the station's atmosphere changed instantly. He demanded Imani's immediate release and preservation of all evidence, including surveillance footage from nearby businesses, that would disprove Stokes's narrative. What would you do if someone in your community faced injustice? Would you stand on the sidelines or join the fight? The power of collective action often determines whether justice prevails. By evening, Imani walked out of the station, charges pending further investigation. A bureaucratic way of saying they had nothing. The crowd erupted in cheers as she embraced her parents, but everyone knew this wasn't over. It was merely the opening statement in a much larger case. Attorney Caldwell didn't just prepare a defense. He built a counteroffensive. For 3 weeks, his team gathered evidence methodically. Security footage from businesses along Cherry Hill Avenue, dispatch records proving no robbery call existed that evening, and testimonies from witnesses who confirmed Imani walked nowhere near the supposed altercation. Most damning was Officer Stokes's history. Caldwell's paralegals uncovered a pattern of similar detainments targeting black teenagers, 17 incidents in the past year alone. Most cases were dismissed quietly, the victims too intimidated or under-resourced to fight back. "We're not just defending you," Caldwell explained during strategy sessions at his downtown office. "We're exposing a systematic abuse of power." Imani proved invaluable to her own case. Her meticulous notes from the interrogation captured Stokes' exact words and threats. Each evening, she researched relevant precedents alongside Caldwell's associates, sometimes identifying case law that even they had overlooked. "Your mind works like a practiced attorney," Caldwell observed after Imani suggested a particular Supreme Court ruling that strengthened their position. Most first-year law students couldn't make these connections. The preliminary hearing arrived on a crisp autumn morning. The courthouse steps teemed with community members wearing "Justice for Imani" buttons. Local activists organized a peaceful demonstration that caught the attention of national civil rights organizations. Inside the courtroom, Officer Stokes projected confidence as he took the stand, uniform pressed and badge gleaming. That facade cracked under Caldwell's cross-examination. "Officer Stokes, please show the court where in your report you documented the specific behavior that created reasonable suspicion to detain Miss Turner." Stokes shifted uncomfortably. She matched the description of a suspect. "And what was that description?" A pause. "Young black female." Murmurs rippled through the gallery as Caldwell continued. "That's your complete description? A demographic that matches thousands of Baltimore residents?" When Caldwell presented the surveillance footage showing Imani nowhere near the alleged incident, Stokes' testimony completely collapsed. His claims about witness statements were exposed as fabrications when dispatch logs showed no such witnesses existed. The judge's face grew increasingly stern. "Officer, these discrepancies suggest either incompetence or deliberate falsification. Neither is acceptable." Throughout the proceedings, Imani sat beside Caldwell, occasionally writing notes that he incorporated into his questioning. Her presence, composed and intelligent, directly contradicted Stokes' portrayal of her as a defiant troublemaker. When the judge dismissed all charges with prejudice and recommended an internal affairs investigation into Officer Stokes's conduct, the courtroom erupted in applause. Has justice ever been denied to you or someone you know? Drop a comment below sharing your story. Remember that true justice requires both knowledge and courage. Sometimes we must stand up not just for ourselves, but for everyone who might face similar injustice tomorrow. The legal victory marked the beginning, not an end. Imani knew that changing one officer's behavior wouldn't transform an entire system. That would require sustained effort, and she was just getting started. The Baltimore City Police Department's press conference came 3 days after the court hearing. The police commissioner, flanked by city officials, announced all charges against Imani Turner had been permanently dropped. His grim expression revealed this wasn't merely about one case, it represented a larger reckoning. "The conduct displayed does not reflect our department's values," he stated, avoiding direct mention of Officer Stokes. "We've launched a comprehensive review of all arrests made by the officer in question over the past 3 years." Behind closed doors, the disciplinary hearing for Officer Stokes lasted 8 hours. By evening, his badge and gun were surrendered pending investigation. 3 weeks later, he resigned rather than face termination. For the first time, accountability had teeth. The ripple effects spread quickly. The department implemented mandatory retraining on constitutional rights for all officers, installed new body camera protocols with strict penalties for malfunctions, and created a civilian review board with actual enforcement powers, reforms the community had demanded for years. For Imani, victory brought unexpected responsibility. Requests for her to speak at community meetings, schools, and youth programs flooded in. Initially hesitant to step into the spotlight, she found her voice when addressing groups of teenagers who saw themselves reflected in her experience. "Knowledge isn't just power, it's protection," she told a packed auditorium at her high school. "I wasn't exceptional, I was prepared." The Empowerment Legal Center, once operating on a shoestring budget with volunteer instructors, received funding from civil rights organizations nationwide. Their Know Your Rights curriculum expanded to 5 additional neighborhoods, with attendance tripling in the months following Imani's case. Local colleges took notice. Howard University offered Imani a full scholarship to their pre-law program. The ACLU created a paid internship with her name attached for future students. Perhaps most significant was the transformation within Baltimore's youth. Teenagers who once avoided police interactions out of fear now documented them with knowledge of legal precedents. Community centers reported record attendance for legal literacy workshops. "Before Imani, we thought the system was too big to fight," explained Darius Williams, a sophomore at Frederick Douglass High. "Now, we know better." If Imani's story inspires you, share this video with someone who needs to understand their rights. Have you used knowledge to protect yourself or others? Tell us your experience in the comments below. In her childhood bedroom, Imani pinned a new quote above her desk. "Justice is not automatic. It must be claimed by those prepared to stand for it." 6 months after her courtroom victory, Imani stood before a crowd gathered at the newly expanded Empowerment Legal Center. The space had doubled in size, with computers loaded with legal databases and shelves filled with constitutional law books. Dozens of young faces looked up at her, the next generation of informed citizens. "What happened to me wasn't unique," Imani said, her voice carrying through the room. "The difference was that I had access to knowledge most people in our communities don't. That needs to change." Her case had become a rallying point, connecting local grassroots efforts to national justice movements. Civil rights organizations cited the Turner case when pushing for police accountability legislation. Law schools developed curriculum around civilian legal education, recognizing that informed communities create systems of mutual protection. "When we know our rights," Imani continued, "we transform from potential victims into powerful advocates, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us." The Baltimore Police Department's reform efforts, while still imperfect, had become a model studied by other cities. Body camera compliance rates improved by 87%. Wrongful detention complaints decreased for the first time in a decade. "This isn't about one bad officer or one prepared teenager," Imani concluded. "It's about building communities where justice doesn't depend on luck or privilege, but exists as a guarantee for everyone." If Imani's story moved you today, consider subscribing to this channel for more narratives of courage and transformation. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly episodes highlighting voices that challenge broken systems. Remember, the most dangerous person to corrupt power isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who knows exactly what the law requires and refuses to accept anything less. Knowledge isn't just power. Knowledge is justice in action.